studios in Oklahoma City. This is an OU update. I'm Jenny Carlson. The Sooner basketball team is rolling right now, and Ryan Aber joins us on the phone to talk about whether they might be able to continue that roll. Ryan, Sooners head to Kansas State on Saturday, a team that they played earlier this year and lost to in overtime. Actually ended a really nice run at that point for the Sooners. How do they avoid losing to the Wildcats again and potentially putting the Skids on another good run?
Well, I think the main thing is just do what they've been doing, which is, play pretty solid defense, get up and down the floor on offense. That's something that they really got out of any kind of a rhythm on against the Wildcats the first time around. Let Kansas State hang around long enough for Marcus Foster to make a big difference. Now, who knows how big of a factor Marcus Foster is going to be in this game. But the way Ryan Spangler and Tayshawn Thomas have been playing, in particular for OU, I think bodes well for this matchup, because in that first game, Hurt from Kansas State played such a vital role for them on the interior for most of the game. And if Spangler and Thomas play the way that they have been, that won't be a factor at all in Manhattan on Saturday.
That loss earlier this year to K-State was followed fairly quickly with a loss at West Virginia, really a blowout loss. The Sooners didn't play well. Just two games right there back-to-back that, sort of didn't look like they had looked up to that point, looked like maybe a little mental, little physical, deficiencies there. The Sooners learned something from that little swoon that those two games started earlier this season?
Yeah, I think it went beyond those two games. I mean, that stretch, they lost 4 of 5. They lost at Kansas and Baylor and a couple tight ones where both of those games and really all 4 of those losses sort of followed the same pattern. They got off to a horrible start, fought their way back in the game with the exception of that game at West Virginia, and then fell apart at the end. They've got off to much better starts during this current 5-game winning streak since they've got things turned around. They've also finished well in those close games. We saw them finish really well in Bedlam, in Stillwater. We saw them finish pretty strong on Monday, against Iowa State. So this is a team that's learning some toughness. They're being a whole lot more consistent on both ends of the floor, and those lessons figure to translate into Saturday and moving forward in the league.
Lastly, Ryan, the Sooners right now sit in sole possession of second place in the Big 12, which, during that losing 4 of 5 stretch, you didn't really know if the Sooners could crawl back up towards the top of the standings. They have, but obviously Kansas still at the top, 8-2 if memory serves me right. Is there a legitimate chance that the Sooners could get into that top spot? Clearly they're going to need some help, but is there a chance they get there?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certainly a chance. Now, is it likely? I don't know. I mean, you've got to go to Ames and win at Hilton, and that's a very difficult environment to win in. And then you also get Kansas here in Norman. If they can finish the season with a sweep, I think that puts a whole lot of pressure on Kansas. Kansas is going to have some tough games going down the stretch. I wouldn't anticipate them losing to anybody else outside of Oklahoma, because they don't play Oklahoma State again. They don't play Iowa State again. So certainly the OU game is Kansas's toughest matchup that remains. So it's not likely, but, stranger things have happened in college basketball.
Definitely so. And Bill Self, I think, has said somewhere along the line that team's young enough to screw up some really good stuff along the way. So remains to be seen, but the Sooners are playing good basketball right now. Be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoma.